In today's video, I want to talk to you about the RED Komodo and why I decided to purchase one. For those of you that are new around here, my name is Riley and I'm a documentary filmmaker who likes talking all things filmmaking and creativity. If you're into documentaries or making films with small crews, then you're in the right place. Consider subscribing and following along. All right, let's dive in. So the biggest reason why I decided to pick this camera up is because of the fantastic image quality. I think for me and a lot of people in that sort of owner-operator, independent filmmaker, DP sort of space, I think RED is sort of like the holy grail of image quality. Sure, there are better cameras maybe for feature films, like the Arri Alexa, but I think that in sort of the space that I operate in, I think RED just has flat out the best image quality. And that's not to say that other cameras are bad or aren't worth using. I love the Sony cameras that I own and think that those produce fantastic images, but I think that just the higher resolution, the higher dynamic range, the global shutter that the Komodo has, as well as the fact that it shoots in RED's RAW codec is just a dream to work with. Being able to change, the ISO, the white balance, the tint in post, being able to work with RED's log image or being able to work with some of their preset output transforms really just provides a fantastic image with great colors and a ton of flexibility. If I've got a lot of time to dedicate to color grading a project, I can work with the log image and just go to town on all of the detail that's in that 16-bit image. But if I don't have a ton of time and I need a shorter turnaround time, I can use one of their preset output transforms and know that I'm gonna be getting just A+ color science and great dynamic range, and that none of it in the raw codec is going to be, permanent or baked in. Another big reason why I decided to pick this up is because of the RED ecosystem. And now the name RED carries a little bit of clout and might mean something to certain clients. But when I talk about the RED ecosystem being a reason to buy this camera and why it was a draw for me is because of modularity and versatility of RED. Now, I think this camera specifically, the Komodo and the other RED cameras as well, they're versatile enough to fit into the documentary space that I like to shoot in, but they're also powerful enough to fit into narrative and feature films as well. So last year I shot a documentary in West Africa and it was a 10-day shoot, and I brought my A7S and my co-producer brought her Red Raven. And so I know firsthand that traveling with and shooting a RED in a remote location is possible, because not only is just the image quality fantastic and worth any little bit of extra hassle that there might be over something like a mirrorless camera, but I know that just the body and the form factor is modular enough to be able to, attach different monitors or EVFs or swap out the top handle or throw it on a gimbal or power it with different power solutions and kind of whatever this camera and just kind of this small flexible form factor that it is needs to be thrown into whatever that environment is. I know that there's a solution for this camera and that this camera can handle it. So from a practical standpoint, the other reason why I bought this camera and was able to buy this camera, aside from having a very supportive wife, is that I had a pretty good sense that this camera is going to pay for itself over the course of a year. Full disclosure, I bought this camera on the B&H 12-month 0% finance program, and I definitely would not recommend doing this unless you also have a good sense that you can afford it and that investment is going to pay for itself. And so for me, I went ahead and did that. I already have already had some projects lined up that I knew I could rent the project to, and some other projects that I knew I could kind of rent the camera back to myself on. And so even before I had the camera purchased, I knew that I had multiple months of those payments paid off. And because it's 0%, I knew that I could sort of get ahead on the payments and could definitely, or hopefully, pay the remaining months off over the course of the year, and hopefully, pay it off early and start having the camera make a profit for me. The other reason from a financial standpoint that I decided to go with RED over something like Sony or Canon with the FX6 or C70 is that the rental market for RED seems to be a little bit higher than some of those other cameras. Now, the FX6 or the C70 probably would be a slightly better documentary camera for me because of the audio connectivity or the built-in ND systems that they have. But like I mentioned earlier about the versatility with RED, I feel like I can kind of make up for some of those deficits with either some of the really good ND systems that are out there that you can put in between the camera body itself and the lens if you're shooting on EF or PL glass, which I plan to shoot mostly EF glass on the Komodo. And so I feel like the versatility of RED sort of makes up a little bit of that deficit in sort of the documentary space, and kind of the upside to owning this camera over one of those cameras is that it has the possibility of being another passive stream of income, of not only renting it to myself, but also being able to rent it out to others. And finally, I think the other reason why I decided to go with RED over a different camera system is to be able to learn some new skills and kind of grow and progress in my career. I think that all of the reasons I mentioned with RED and their raw codec and just the fantastic image quality, I think for me is an exciting new challenge. And there's some new things that I'll have to learn in terms of color grading this image, working with a raw workflow, and kind of being opened up to kind of the world of possibilities in terms of, kind of the modularity that this camera body can fit into. I think means that I'm going to have a lot of room to grow and a lot of new things to learn. It's also like pretty small compared to some of the other, REDs out there. And so if I hold up my FX30 next to the Komodo, it's not that much bigger. And certainly this camera is not going to pass for a stills camera if I'm shooting a documentary overseas. But the fact that it's so close in size means that it's going to fit in similar size carry-ons and cases and bags and that sort of thing. And so I'm not going, in some ways I'm really pushing myself outside of my comfort zone and kind of committing to a raw workflow and kind of all of, the things needed to make that work. But in other ways, I'm kind of pretty close to home and familiar with it because I've worked with RED enough before, but also just the size and form factor of this is not so far outside of my comfort zone, that I have to have a big FX9 on my shoulder at all times, to shoot handheld with it. And so, yeah, in some ways it feels very comfortable, but in other ways, I think it's really going to push me outside my comfort zone, and I'm definitely excited to learn with it, use it, and grow into it. As you can probably tell, I'm super excited to work with this camera. The couple things that I've already shot with it, I am definitely loving the image and am excited to share some upcoming videos as well. If you have any questions for me about this little guy and why I decided to purchase it, or you just want to roast me for, buying a RED and, selling out or whatever, let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one.